Today it's a very special day for all of us, and I would like to welcome all the distinguished guests, faculty members, and dear students from various colleges. Today we are all privileged to have one of the greatest researchers that we have seen so far, and he has kindly agreed to share his knowledge about how to do the research and how to basically be in the research field at the very early stage and how you can progress yourself further. So myself, Rohan Srivastav, I am president of Skill Build program in SmartGaon. So I will be helped by Rahul, who is also in SmartGaon program, and Navneet ji, who is also handling a lot of things within the SmartGaon organization. So in terms of the format, I will be giving 15 to 20 minutes to Himanshu ji so that he can present his slides, and then after I do my introduction, obviously, and then based on that, we can generally have a Q&A session, because in this type of a topic, I do feel that it's more like a open discussion where you can raise your questions, and we have also received certain amount of question already, so we will be proceeding with those questions too. So without further ado, I would like to start this session, and starting with a beautiful introduction with about the speaker. So we have Himanshu Thapliyal. Please welcome all Himanshu ji, and thank you very much, Himanshu ji, for joining this webinar, and thank you very much for taking out the time for all of us, where you can share your expert knowledge in the field of research. So Himanshu ji is currently an associate professor with the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at the University of Attendee, USA. He received a PhD degree in Computer Science and Engineering from University of South Florida, Tampa in 2011, where he received a Distinguished Graduate Achievement Award. From 2012 to 2014, he worked as a designer of processor test solutions at Qualcomm, where he received the Qualcomm QualStar Award for contributions to the memory built-in self-test. He joined as an associate professor at the University of Kentucky in 2014, where he got promoted to associate professor in 2020. He has been ranked in the top 50 among scientists throughout the world in the field of computer hardware and architecture for the calendar years 2019 and 2020. He is the recipient of the 2019 NSF CAREER Award and 2020 IEEE-CS TCVLSI Mid-Career Research Achievement Award. He has authored over 150 journal conference articles with over 4,800 citations. He received 3 US patents, 4 Best Paper Awards, an Outstanding Paper Award, and 2 Best Paper nominations. I think I can keep on going. I mean, the list is huge. He is serving as a section editor of the Springer Nature Computer Science, senior associate editor of the IEEE Consumer Electronics Magazine, and the associate editor of the IEEE Internet of Things journal. So I mean, I have tried to make it as small as possible because it was too much to say about Himanshu ji that I thought I better keep it as small as possible. This is the smallest version that I could bring it out. So I also would like to I have received a request basically from Meenal ji. So she also would like to speak a few words from SIRT. So SIRT is a group of colleges who has been involved in this IBM Skill Build program, and they are doing quite well from the research perspective too. So can someone please unmute Meenal ji if she has joined?
Yeah, a very good morning. Good morning from Sagar Institute of Research and Technology. I, on behalf of SIRT, also welcome Himanshu Thapliyal ji. And sir, we have a bunch of researchers who have joined this session. Since I'm looking into the R&D section of our institute, many of the researchers who want to start their research journey or are on their way of the research journey in the upcoming fields of IoT and cybersecurity would definitely love to hear from you. And I mean, hearing to your resume, you worked so much good in Qualcomm that I think this session is definitely going to be one of the wonderful sessions. Thanks to the anchor. And sir, without wasting any time, I think we love to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Rohan, and thank you, Professor Meenal, for the introduction and the kind introduction. Thank you for all the attendees who are here. And first of all, thank you for the SmartGaon Foundations and the Reach Up Foundations for organizing this event. So it is great to be here. So how the things will work actually, because see, I have been working in the research, since my undergraduate. So just to give you an idea, so I was an undergraduate student around 2000 to 2004, actually, almost like 17, 18 years back, right? Why this thing is important, because just to give you some ideas, so before even we start the talk, and this should be a good motivation for many students actually. So I published and get started in my research as almost like a second year undergraduate student actually. So during my BTech, in the second year of my BTech, I started doing my research. And by the time, so my first research paper got published very soon, around 2003. I was still in the BTech, and by the time I completed my BTech, I already have around 6 publications in the well-respected conferences. And so then I continued, and so I think whatever the experiences and the knowledge I have gained over a period of time, starting from as an undergraduate to the master's student, then to the PhD student, and then I work in industry, and then I also serve in academia for almost like a long time now. So it is a great opportunity, and what I will do actually is to give you some ideas of the important research directions, and which each one of them can itself be a full, you can say, a complete talk by itself. These are big topics. So I will try to just give you some ideas on some of these directions, and then actually I am much more willing to take the questions that might have accumulated from the audience or from the faculties. Some of the questions that can be think in this case is how to write a research paper, right? Or how to, let's say, this is first question, how to get started in the research. And then another interesting question that could comes in people's mind is that, what should I do once I have the ideas, how to approach the folks actually. So these are some of the questions that can comes in anybody's mind actually. And when I started doing my research as undergrad, I also don't have that much clues. Fortunately, I get to meet very nice mentors at the right stage in my career. I'm really thankful to them, because without their guidance, I would not been here and speaking in front of you today. And so meeting the right people at the right time is very important, and trying to use those opportunities in our career growth is another important thing. So that's why I will give these opportunities to interact and make these things as much interactive as possible. So after I speak for a few minutes, like 10, 12 minutes or 15 minutes, I can speak for hours actually, but I will try to restrict it. And then I will let Rohan to have some sort of Q&A sessions. And in the audience, let's say there are so many different students and faculties are here. If you have any questions, just don't hesitate. I like to take questions, and I'm much more willing to answer all those questions. So one thing before I start, curiosity is the most important thing if you want to do research, and how to make be curious. Don't hesitate to ask questions. If you be hesitant to ask questions, then what will happen? That that your knowledge will be very limited. So ask questions. It is fine to ask questions, and because once you ask question, it is okay to not know the things. What's the big deal? Even I am presenting in front of you guys, does it mean that I know everything in the world? No, because we all learning as we are progressing. So don't hesitate to ask questions, and this is a good opportunity for all of you. Okay. So let's start. So what are the trending topics right now? So some of the topics that are trending and is of interest right now is something like, you can say, artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum computing is one of the trending topics right now. Big data, right? A lot of data analytics. Smart healthcare. You can think in this case during the COVID time, healthcare has a big issue right now, right? So smart healthcare is a big issue. Manufacturing. You think in this case that India has a huge potential of becoming a manufacturing hub, right? So right now, if you look into the manufacturing hub, China is one of the leaders in the manufacturing hubs. But India has also a great opportunities to become the manufacturing hub, right? So how the smart manufacturing can play a big role. If you see, I can see that there is a huge number of participants in today's webinar, right? So think in this case, if imagine that, and then cybersecurity is another big topic, then IoT and edge computing, right? So let's say, imagine that I already discussed around 7 to 8 topics here, and each one of you, there are more. I'm not saying this is the best one, there are more, but these are some of the things that you can think in these cases. You might have heard that India is also getting interested in establishing foundries in India. Previously, you see that most of the chips are designed but not fabricated in India. So nowadays you see that government is investing a huge amount of money in India. Also in US, the US government is also investing a lot of things in manufacturing facilities in the VLSI chip industry, how the chips will be fabricated. So there will be tons of opportunities that will be arising for the people, both for the students in India as well as in abroad. So there is a huge opportunities, and these are some of the topics which I think is people should get interested. Okay. So let's go further. And so I started as a professor, and I had a strong research group. Many postdoctoral fellows work with me. Many graduate students have worked with me. I like to work also with undergrad students. So a lot of undergrad students work with me. And over the past years, my students have regularly wins awards, actually, and why it is important? Because for the students, one of the most important thing in the life is to find a right mentor. So it is equally important to choose the right research topic, but it's also equally important to choose the right advisor. Okay, fortunately, over a period of time, I had very nice mentors and advisors. They played a big role in my training, and that you can see in this case that that the training is very important, and that's what plays a big role, right? So you need to choose a topic, but more or importantly thing is you need to also identify the right mentor or the right advisor. Okay, so that is going to play a big role in your career. Okay. Now, in my research lab, we focus on different topics. Some of the topics that my research lab focuses on is in cybersecurity. We also look into IoT and smart systems, smart healthcare, quantum computing, and emerging technologies. I thought of giving you some idea because quantum computing is, and again, this is not like a complete wholesale, it's a complete talk on each topic. I will just give you some preliminary ideas to get familiar. And then if you have more interest, you can connect me with the emails and all those things. So let's say how the quantum computing is different, because if you think in the previously that how you have been taught, like the digital logic works in 0 and 1, right? But in the quantum computing, you can have the states from somewhere between 0 to 1, and it can also occur in a superposition state, that only once you measure it, then you will know it's 0 and 1. And because of this, the paradigm is changing, and there's a huge interest in the quantum computing. And this is one example of the superposition, because you don't have the exactly 0 and 1, it is a superposition state. So over a period of time now, you can think in this case, lots of industries are gaining momentum, and this is some examples here, right? But think in this case, the quantum computing field right now is almost same as how you can say that our chip design field or VLSI design field is in the 1980s. At a time it was, people were just starting. So similarly, quantum computing is just, you can say, has been there, but this is the time when it has gained a lot of momentum right now. So so how does it help? Because it has gained a lot of momentum. So that's a good opportunities for you to jump into this area and take the opportunities and become a leader in this area, right? So if you start right now, this is the area where there's a huge opportunities for most of you to become one of the leaders in the areas and the pioneers in the areas, right? Because the field is just gaining the pace. So there are some good application of quantum computing. You can solve some of the problem which were previously unsolvable in nature, because the quantum computing can, you can say, can help some of these problems in a faster time, okay? So that is, for example, factoring. If you look into that, many of the encryption algorithms are secure because the factoring algorithms take exponential amount of time. But with quantum computers, the factoring can be done in a polynomial time. So that's why many of the encryption engines will not be secure anymore. Okay. So there is a similarly, it has also application in scientific computing. You can say, you can apply quantum computing in space application. You can apply quantum computing in medicine, manufacturing, wherever you want, in finance. So there's a huge opportunities for, and I encourage all the students to look into these areas. Now, if you think in this case, India has also a lot of potential from the smart cities, smart village perspective point of view. You see that smart city, if you think in this case, is what is a smart city? So you have this Internet of Things, that IoT, and then everything, smart building, smart infrastructure, citizens, and all those things, right? So you might have seen from the India perspective, like the government and everybody is planning to convert a lot of cities to the smart cities again. So there is a lot of need for the engineers, right? For the people. Okay. Similarly, for example, the SmartGaon Foundation is transforming the villages, if you see in this space. So how do you define a village? What is a smart village? So how do you define a village? So so one interesting thing you think in this case, how do you define a village, is a village, a smart village should have access to the internet facilities. They should have access to the government facilities. And for example, people should have access to the healthcare facilities, banking facilities. They should all be connected through some Internet of Things activity. So this is one example where you can think in this case, there's a doctor, caregiver, policymakers, industrialists, and this IoT, the Internet of Things, is going to play a big role, right? So now you have a smart HUD, you have smart transportation and all those things. So see, think in this case, India is a country where there's a lot of villages. So there's a lot of opportunities for people like you here to explore and become like data scientists, become embedded system engineers. A lot of opportunities to in these areas, okay? But there is a challenge also, Think in this case, you want to make this system smart, but if there is no electricity there, how are you going to make the system run? So there is a lot of opportunities in the solar area, right? So how can you connect this system, villages, with some sort of solar facilities so that this internet type of things still running there, right? So you need some power to run it there. So the solar can play a big role. Now you think in this case, when you're talking about this, now many villages may not have good internet connectivity also. So what types of protocols do you want to use in the villages? What types of, do you want to use Wi-Fi? Do you want to use Zigbee? Do you want to use NB-IoT? Do you want to use some different LoRa as a protocol, right? So because in villages, you may not have the good internet bandwidth connectivity also, right? So that is also a lot of opportunities for the telecommunication, you can say communication engineers. There are also a lot of opportunity for the IoT engineers. So there is again, big ton of opportunity for the research. And this is all practical hands-on things, okay? Healthcare, so healthcare, as I told you, is again a big area during the COVID time. So so this is underlying idea. You can think in this case, there's a human, there's a person, and this is everything is connected to the smart healthcare, right? So the sensors are deployed in the people's body, they can measure the data, and then all these informations can be transmitted. So in my home, let's say, or somewhere somebody has COVID symptoms, right? Do you know it's a COVID or not? What if the person is wearing some sort of a wristband or something like that, that can take somebody's symptoms like a cough, cold, whatever, sneezing, diagnose it, and based on that, they can make some decision on that, right? So without going into too much detail, I want to talk briefly about COVID, right? Because so think in this case, COVID is a big opportunity again for the healthcare aspect. So can you use some sort of learning and quotation methods here, right? Can you make some sort of smart home environment, right? Now, similarly, say example, how can you make sure that this contact tracing occurs by using some technologies, right? So of course, when you have a lot of data, then the security and the privacy will also be a big issue, right? So security and privacy is another challenging thing, right? So there is, as I told you, there's big opportunities here, right? You can take a lot of this project, a lot of interesting directions. You don't know how the pandemic thing is going to is to look like in future. So there's a lot of opportunities for all of us as engineers to do a lot of research and do research on machine learning, quantum computing, healthcare, and all those aspects. I will also talk you briefly about the cyber security aspect. So if you think in this case, we have all the cyber physical systems. The cyber physical systems can be IoT. It can be some sort of a vehicle to vehicle. Like, for example, you see many companies are thinking of making autonomous vehicles, autonomous cars. So there is a lot of opportunities. But when you're driving an autonomous car, what if somebody hacks your car, right? It is a very, very dangerous situation. So cyber security is again going to play a big role. You might have reading about ransomware attacks. So cyber security is very, very important, right? So you see that Internet of Things has huge application, right? You see it is everywhere in medical field, sensors. This is the growth that you're seeing in the IoT devices over a period of time. IoT is available in wearables, smart home, everywhere IoT is there, right? Now you think in this case, what is the issue? This is the graph of the IoT security vulnerabilities. So if you think in this case, I want to have my fridge connected to IoT. I want to have my printer connected to IoT. I want to have in my home a camera connected to IoT, right? So that I can see it from far. But you see that it's also bringing a lot of vulnerabilities. The hackers can attack your devices. They can steal your personal information, and they can sometimes take the money from your account. They can also steal some sort of the IPs, not always attack is about money. Sometimes the malicious actors try to steal the intellectual properties, sometimes to take personal data from the government servers. So there is a lot of security, you can say, importance in that way. So this is one example. You can think in this case that there is IoT, these attacks are possible in printers, consumer electronics, cameras, IP phone. So you can see there's a lot of interest in you guys who are attending this talk to become the cybersecurity experts. That is a lot of opportunities. So another interesting thing, when you want to deploy these IoT devices, these devices need to be very, very low power, because many of these devices are operating in battery, right? They are very, very low power. So how can you make them operated, right? So that's another challenge. So there's a trade-off. You want to increase the security, right? But these doesn't have, they are running in battery. So if you try to put too many security features there, then your battery is going to drain out. Imagine that you have some some watch or something that you're wearing, and it is draining the battery after 1 hour, 2 hours, you will see that, okay, why I'm wearing this device? You want the battery to last for a long time. But on the other side, what if somebody tried to steal the data about your health from your watch, right? That's a security vulnerability. So it's a trade-off, okay? So a lot of research in this area. So there is a lot of attacks possible. I will quickly go to you some example. This is one example when somebody tried to attack, you can say, somebody's smart lamp, and from that they were able to take the control of the whole home, right? So suppose there's a smart home, you want to have some smart bulb in your house, and the hacker was trying to steal the information, and from that they were able to, you can say, attack the whole smart home environment. This is one example, right? Okay. So this is also possibility, right? This is one form of attack. Then another form of attack, you think in this case, is people can, let's say you buy a transaction card, financial transaction card, which is used for, let's say, whenever you travel on a train, then it deducts the money from that. What if somebody tried to maliciously recharge it, right? Or somebody can take the information from your credit card and all those things. So those are all vulnerability issues are there. So a lot of opportunities for research, okay? Similarly, you can say automotive vehicles, these automotive vehicles, people are talking about autonomous cars, right? You see here autonomous cars. So there is a lot of security vulnerabilities, right? Because the idea of the autonomous car is that one car will talk to another car. What if there is a malicious car in between and there is a snow, right? Right now there is snow, the road conditions are really, really bad conditions, and the malicious car send you a message that everything is perfectly fine. You should drive at a speed of 60 or 70, but because the road conditions are so bad that you cannot drive, you can have to drive only for 20, but this malicious car is telling you drive at 70, right? It is to the other driver. So what will happen? The crash will happen. So there are a lot of, you can say, security vulnerabilities also there, right? Okay, so there are a lot of opportunities. So I actually, along with one of other professor, we added like the Springer, as service section editor of Springer Nature Computer Science. We added a couple of special issues in these areas. So I encourage all of you to look into that. I am also looking for strong PhD students. There is always opportunities in my research group to work on these areas. And with that, I will stop here, and then I will let Rohan to ask some questions about the research journey, which I will share with you, that how this thing that I talked to you have really happened in my life,
Thank you so much, Himanshu. Thank you so much for telling us about all the research topics and plus the interesting quantum computing aspect of it. So I really liked it. And on top of that, what I really, really like is the idea of focusing on the opportunities and then think from the solution perspective. And that's something which is a really eye-opener for everyone, those who are focusing on the research. So just a very quick thing before I start with Q&A. So if in any research group or any researcher would like to test or let's say perform anything in the village with respect to their test, with respect to their research, be it data collection or any network-based projects or any project or any research where you're trying to solve a problem, but you need to test it somewhere. And if you want to test it in the villages, then please get in touch with us. We have village coordinators and volunteers who can support in this work. Yeah, we will also take the questions at the end of my Q&A sessions. So if you have any more questions, please keep on putting it in the chat box. And Rahul, please take care of these questions and put them in the list. Okay. So Himanshu ji, I'm really thrilled to talk about all the research work that you have done. So could you please share your research journey and what basically motivates you before you start to choose any topic or before you start to even put a step further?
Okay, that's a great question. So I will answer this question in two different ways, right? So first of all, I will answer this question from the student's perspective, right? And then I will answer this question from the faculty perspective, because so that both of the audience get benefit. From the student perspective, as I told you, is that when I was in a second year undergraduate student, so I was always curious to do something beyond what is being taught in the textbook, and I was looking for some opportunities. Fortunately, at a time, I was undergrad student, so I had some interest in Vedic mathematics, actually Vedic mathematics. So I was learning the Vedic mathematics a lot. And after learning the Vedic mathematics, then the idea came to my mind that why should not we look into developing some sort of, you can say, a hardware chips that can perform some computation based on the algorithm that is provided in Vedic mathematics, like multiplication, division, and all those things. But of course, as a second year student, I don't have a clue at that time, to be honest with you. So fortunately, I met one of the very, you can say, nice professor. He was very supportive, and he taught me many things at the time. And because of that, I started implementing some of these things into, as you can say, as a hardware design. There are some hardware languages similar to the software languages, C, C++. There is hardware languages like Verilog and VHDL. So I started implementing some of these ideas in the Verilog and all those things. I learned many of these things by myself and then fortunately, with the help of my, you can say, my professor at the time, I submit my first research paper. The paper I submitted to some of the conferences in India. Then there's another problem that I submitted to some conference in USA. Then there's another problem that I submitted to another conference in at that time in United Kingdom, UK, right? So the problems were different. Some of them, let's say, for the hard to develop some hardware chips on Vedic mathematics for multiplication, division, square, cube root, different types of algorithms were there, right? So that's how my research journey started. Then I thought, actually, what, at the time, most of my friends were planning to go for, the jobs, BTech, after completing the, you can say, you do the, so, but I was always interested in doing the further research. So I thought of looking into some research program, some institute where I can pursue my research opportunities, right? So then I looked into one of the programs there. So there was a program there that is MS by research. It is specially looking into that you get a degree with research, right? So I you can say, joined IIIT Hyderabad. And so when I joined the IIIT Hyderabad, there was a whole research program, and there was a lot of professors who were doing high quality research. I entered into that. Then again, I published a good amount of papers in different topics. And then you can think, in this case, I want to pursue further studies, because again, there's always an attraction for going for a job at a time, but I want to continue further. So I entered into the PhD program in USA. I know at that time that my advisor, under whom I did my PhD, was one of the top experts in this area. So it was like my dream to work with him. And finally, I applied and I continued for my PhD. And so this is, you can say, more like a journey for me as a student, right? So that is a journey for us as a student. You think, in this case, for a student, it's more important to find the right mentors at the right time. Now, let's say the other round is that you are a professor, right? Now you're a professor, how do you look into the research areas? So the important thing is that as a professor is to identify what interests you. What are the topics that you think is according to your background, your comfort, your knowledge, whatever. And don't hesitate to learn new things, right? Let's say it might be possible that over a period of time, you have some expertise in data science, but nowadays you see that artificial intelligence, machine learning is becoming more trending topics. So being willing to learn, and then identify the topics which is also makes you feel satisfactory in doing the research. But there's also opportunities for your students to be, you can say, marketable in the job market or to the industries, right? Because if you work on something, then it should also benefit your students, and overall it should help you to increase your name in the field. So that's how you can think, in this case, as a faculty, you can identify the topics. So look for the topics which are which suits your background, your interest, but which also has some trends going on right now. So you need to choose the right balance between both those things.
Oh, that's great. That's really great, Himanshu. My next question would be, what are some of your proudest accomplishments?
Yes,
Because
so
there are many actually,
yeah,
huge list.
so I will tell you one thing actually, so as an undergraduate student, I will start as an undergrad student first, okay? So and my university was huge. There were so many students in that university. Maybe it's like 20,000, 30,000 students at a time, okay? So it was, and in such a big school, university is difficult to get recognized at that level, right? Okay. Fortunately, I published the papers, and at the time, the government of Uttarakhand provided me like support for 1 lakh Indian rupees at the time as an undergrad, 2002. And it was, you can say, I consider it's a great accomplishment and a starting point in my career. And so that is one of the starting accomplishment. Then after that, there are many, you can say that I received Distinguished Graduate Achievement Award in my you can say in my PhD time. Then I received this National Science Foundation Career Award, many of them. But if you ask me, some of the proud accomplishment I feel when my students win the award, that is more proud, because that means that they came with some, you can say that they came with some like some sort of trust on you, that they will join with you with some hope that they are joining with you and they will become successful. And when they become successful, they win awards, they win outstanding dissertation awards, they receive best paper awards, right? And they are ranked as, you can say, almost like the top student in the whole college, whole university. And then they get very satisfactory job they want to do, right? You can say that I consider the most proudest accomplishment rather than my own accomplishments.
Oh, that's really good to know. Actually, we were also very proud, because being an Indian and reaching to a top 50 list, which is all over the world, from all over the world, it's really making us feel very proud. But could you please tell us more about it? Like, how did you get into that, and how was your journey overall?
Yes, so as I told you, actually, I started publishing very early, around 2003 as an undergrad student. So, and then I continued publishing. And then actually, what, one thing that I will tell you, I'm fortunate to my PhD advisor. He's no more, but I had a great respect for my PhD advisor, Professor Ranganathan. He was a great mentor and a great friend to me. So some of the things that he told me during my PhD time, actually, he said, what, publish in quality places, publish in reputed journals, and and so make sure that that whatever the work you do gains attraction over a period of time. So, and then when these things further change when I went to industry. I understood, when I went to working for industry for Qualcomm, I understood that what, we should solve some problem which has also some real world impact, right? Okay. So when I joined as a faculty, I tried to look into some problem which has also the real world impact. For example, healthcare, right? For example, healthcare has a real impact also. Security, right? So then when you work on these topics, then your papers are automatically gaining attention of the other researchers, because they are on the hot topic, they are on the first ones in the field, right? So people are reading your research work, right? When the people are reading your research work, then they are citing your research because they think that it's a good paper on the topic, right? And so then they're citing the research. Then you can say there are some other indexes. For example, some of them are like H indexes, right? Or some other citation count. How many papers you have written as a first author, that is also important. How many papers you have written as a first author, and how many citations he had received. How many usually authors are there in the papers, right? So from that, there are some researchers in the Stanford University. There is a database called Scopus. They created a list of almost like 100,000 top scientists in different areas, for example, like physics, like biology, and different types of areas. Within that, they also created a list of the people in the computer architecture. Fortunately, you can say that, the paper that I received has received good attention and citation. And because of that, when they created the list, they found me as, from this list, they found me as like one of the top 50, you can say, researcher in my area based on the metrics like citations, authors, number of authors per paper, and all those things, whatever they created. Yeah.
Thank you, Himanshu ji. I mean, that's really good to know. The next question I'll try to cover two at once because they are both related basically. So how to choose a research topic and what is the right time to start the research?
Right. So I will tell you, there is no right or wrong time to start research. When students work with me, many of the students who start with me doing research are undergraduate students, right? And you can start doing the research at the high school student level also, or the middle school. So there is no right or wrong time. It's all about your curiosity, right? But so if you ask me, whenever you feel that this is a time, you should start contacting people. Those students who are in their colleges, they can look into the faculty's profiles and see and get joined with them. I encourage most of my undergrad students to do some sort of independent study with some professor and get accustomed to some research interest. And then so you can think in this case, I will suggest that, especially for the undergrads, I will say that start from the first year or the second year of the undergraduation. That is the best time to start.
Oh, great. Thank you. Because there are a lot of students have joined and a lot of faculty members are also here. So how can they basically get a guidance from foreign professors on
Correct.
this? I actually wanted to cover the research topic as well, but since you've already covered in your slide, so I'm jumping a step ahead. So this is where I think that will be useful for all the faculty members and students, that how they can actually get the guidance.
Exactly. So when I was an undergrad, see, I will tell you, when I was an undergrad, then sometimes, so I was looking into some problems, and so what happened that, I published. So how can you, first of all, how can you get guidance from the people, right, who are in foreign, right? So let's say there are different ways. One of the ways I will tell you is to attend conferences. As an undergrad student, or even like graduate students, there are two ways to attend the conference. One way of attending the conference is you have your own research paper published in the conference. Second way is that you can attend the conference as an attendee, right? So many conferences provide fellowship to the students that they can attend the conferences for free, right? When I was a student by myself, so I got some fellowship during those times to attend some of these conferences. When I went to these conferences, I met some of the folks, some of the professors from the foreign universities. Then after I returned, I took some of the information from that. During the conference, I have some brief communication with them, and I discussed some of my ideas. After I came back, I started communicating with some of these professors through emails, right? And of course, when you will meet several people, you can think in this case, many professors are, almost all professors are busy, because they are also managing their own research group, their own students, they have their own commitments also. So you can approach and start contacting about your ideas to some of these professors. And many of the people may respond to you if they find your idea interesting. Similarly, fortunately for me, some professors do responded, and I started collaboration with some professors from USA and from UK during, you can say, during my undergraduation or during my master's, So that was really, and then it resulted in some co-authored papers with some of these folks in the foreign universities, right? So you can say in this case, is, first of all, how will you build your connections? So the connection is that they should go to the conferences. In India, we organize a conference every year. It is called International Symposium on Smart Electronic Systems. For that conferences, we provided every year a lot of fellowship to the students, where the students can attend the conferences. And it is on smart systems, so the fields are IoT and all those things. So as the students, I will suggest the best way is that attend conferences, build your connections, build your network, talk to the professors. Okay, so they have, once they have seen you, they know that. And then most importantly is that do some good work, good research. That is also important.
Okay, that's really good to know. So basically, we have spoken a lot about papers, research papers, white papers, journals, patents. Can you just briefly tell us so that all the students know the difference between them and what actually they are? So how do they differ between research paper and white paper? Yeah.
Yes, very good question. So think in this case, that's a very good question. And I think, so white paper is mostly written by the companies, right? Or the, you can say, not like the NGOs or the government organization, where they want to, let's say you are building some tool, right? As a company, and you want to make the people aware of your tools and technologies and what are the benefits of your tool compared to the other existing tools. So white paper are mostly served on those purposes, right? Now coming to the research paper is, most of them are the technical research work, right? So research paper can also be categorized into two categories. One of them can be like a survey paper, survey paper. Survey paper means, let's say I want to write a survey paper on, first of all, why the survey paper is important. Survey papers also helps you to aware of what is done in the area. So it is called literature survey, right? So let's say right now the COVID is very going on. So let's say, first of all, you don't have to do your own research, but you can write a survey paper that what types of technologies, solutions are available that can diagnose COVID. What types of solutions? So this means you are looking into other people research, trying to understand, and you are forming like a good literature review of what is existing in the literature. Okay, so that is a survey paper. Now a research paper. Now, so in the research category, your idea should be new. It should be different from what has been done in the literature. So there can be two types of things. It can be a incremental idea, or it can be a complete novel idea. Both are okay. Incremental idea means that, okay, you know what, somebody has built a device or built something, and then you find some deficiency in those device or whatever method they have proposed, and you improve that on that existing method. So you're improving the existing method. So that is, you can say you're incrementing it, right? That is also fine. That's also research. So it is completely fine. So that is also good direction. Another direction is that your idea is completely novel. Nobody has looked into that. This is the first idea, one of the first ideas in this area, right? So that is another interesting aspect, right? Okay,
That's really good to know. So how to select the right conferences? Basically, there is also one more question that has come in the chat window. And if you know any of the conferences in India where we can submit these research papers, that would also be good to know.
yes. So
And
in
and
India,
how to, sorry, and how to submit those papers. So our selection is one aspect and submission is another aspect. Yeah.
so there are, see, first of all, there are several conferences occur, right? Okay. So first of all, I will advise people to submit in good places. If you submit in a bad places, they don't have the review process. They will select any garbage, because many of these conferences which are not the good conferences, they will accept anything. And these things will harm your CV than helping your CV, right? So publish in good places. So look into like the conferences which are sponsored by, let's say, by IEEE, by ACM. These are the good technical fields, then you can look into some conferences which are published, let's say by Springer, Elsevier, and all those things. So look for the conferences, who is organizing them, what are the committees, who are people organizing them, and then is it in your field? So whenever you want to submit, first of all, every conference will have call for papers. That call for papers will give the topics and the titles that conference is interested in. So you can look into those things, that if your paper is fitting in those call for papers, and then that decides that which is the place to submit. But again, as I told you, submit in good reputed places, okay, because they have the peer review process. They will give you the feedback also. Sometimes your paper will get rejected in the good conferences, but the feedback that you will get will help you to do better. But let's say if you submit in a very, very garbage conference, they will accept anything. They won't give you any feedback. And then you're not learning anything, right? Okay. So it's okay to get rejected. Okay. But getting a good feedback is also important.
Okay, that's really good. Sometimes we have also seen there's a lot of plagiarism is also floating around. So for everyone, I mean, I might have used a new word, which is actually copying somebody's content and then presenting it as if you have made it by yourself. So this thing is quite going on quite a lot. So how to actually avoid it, and what are the consequences?
Correct. So plagiarism is a big issue actually. Okay. And this is one of the reasons is that I think, first of all, there are many faculties and you can say the higher level authorities from the colleges here. I think each of the colleges should have at least 1 to 2 weeks course on research conduct. That is very important, where people should be trained on the plagiarism. Okay, what is plagiarism? Okay, so first of all, let's say what is a plagiarism. So plagiarism is, let's say you try to take somebody's idea or some paper from, or some information or somebody's paper, and you don't give them credit, right? That is plagiarism. Let's say you read somebody's paper and you verbatim copy that whole paragraph into your own paper and claiming that it is you have written it by yourself without citing that person's research, right? So that is, you can say plagiarism is almost equal to stealing somebody's work, right? Okay, which is a big offense actually in some, because if you, let's say if you do these things, then especially in some of the US is very strict about it. Okay, so if US universities are very strict. So let's say if somebody does that, then the student can be suspended also. Say example, the students can also get a failing grade in the courses. So and most importantly, it also harms the reputation, right? So after all, why you're doing the research? You are trying to do the research to create a big name of yourself, right? You want to become an established researcher. So if you do that, it also harm your reputation, right? Okay, that, and IEEE specifically has some policies, okay? Let's say depending on the level of plagiarism, okay, they may bar you for 5 years. You can never submit a paper in an IEEE journal or IEEE conferences. They may bar you for 5 years. Some of time they will also release a list of blacklisted authors. Okay, sometimes depending on the level of plagiarism, they may ask you to write an apology letter to the authors, that you have copied their ideas. So you see, in this case, it all not good. It brings some sort of bad reputation, and we should avoid it at all cost. Okay, now how should we avoid it? The best way is that there are some trainings available on how to avoid plagiarism. So go to those trainings. Try to understand that even when we are writing some papers, we are taking some ideas that is already been published. We properly cite them, phrase them in our own words. We paraphrase them, but we do cite them. Okay, this doesn't mean that I paraphrase somebody's information, it has become my own. It doesn't have become your own. Okay, so I will quickly share with you one interesting aspect, because I think this is one of the keys. Okay, so give me a minute. I want to share with you one picture. This is from the Purdue this one, okay? Purdue Writing School. Let me know if you can see it. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So you see that, should I cite this? Is the information, data, or opinion is your idea? Yes. Have you published this info before? No. Then you don't have to cite. If yes, even the self cites itself, if you try to take the all the information from your own paper, then it also a self plagiarism. We should avoid it. Is this information knowledge? Is so this is some of the things, right? So is the information is a common knowledge? It's a common knowledge, then it's fine, right? For example, you know, what is a common knowledge? Common knowledge is that if the cloud is forming, there's going to be rain. That's a common knowledge, right? The sun sets from the east is a common knowledge. Okay. So sun sets from the west, that's a common knowledge, right? So these things, which is a common knowledge, is fine, but something which you're taking, which is not a common knowledge, you have to cite it, you have to give references to it. For example, are you copying, if it is not a common knowledge, no, are you copying the source exactly, putting in your own words? So these are some of the things, right? Sometimes, depending on the information that you're trying to take, you can put some quotation on that one. This means you are saying that, hey, according to, let's say, Professor Doe or Professor Jones, this is the information. So then you're giving the reference to that person. This means you're saying that that person said it, not you. You are saying this thing, right? Sometimes you can paraphrase your own things, right? But you give a proper citation of everything. So remember that. You may sometimes think that nobody will know about it, but trust me, there are softwares available. You can put a paper in the software and it will tell you that how much of the information is copied and from which sources. And nowadays, most of this publishing and most of the publishers like IEEE ACM, they have the software inbuilt inside them. So many times they can detect the plagiarism. So I will encourage all of you to go through this plagiarism training. And it's not like that we do sometimes intentionally. Sometimes we may be doing this thing unintentionally because we are not aware of what is meant by plagiarism. Okay. So that's why it is that's why I'm saying to you is that it doesn't matter you do it intentionally or unintentionally. Plagiarism is a plagiarism, right? So how to avoid it? The better ways to avoid is to get properly trained. Okay. So there are enough amount of resources available through different universities and you can easily learn and avoid it.
Thank you very much, Himanshu. For everyone, we are little overshooting our time. We were planning to complete it within an hour's time, but our focus is that in next 20 minutes, we will wrap it up. So I will take 5 more minutes to complete my questions. Then I would like to give at least 15 minutes for others to raise theirs. Moving on to the next one, Himanshu. So with respect to this research paper, so what are the contents that you expect, that you foresee from a paper, and how actually to write a research paper? Do you think there are any tutorials available? Do you think there are any tools available? If there are any list of tools, please let us know.
Yes, exactly. So yesterday I was talking to my former PhD student. He's a professor now. So I was talking to him, and you know what, I told him that, you know what, I'm giving a talk to some of the folks, and so how to write a paper. So he said, you should share the template that you share with me. That is a good resource. So I will quickly go over that because of the interest of the time. So let me quickly share my screen. Okay. So whenever you write a paper, okay, whenever you write a paper, you have to always understand it has some content, some way. Okay. So let's think in this case, right? If you go to let's say this is a marriage season in India, right? So if you go to the marriage party, and so there is a way that you eat appetizers, then you eat some main course, whatever the food, and then you eat some sort of, you can say, dessert, right? Okay. Like India you can see India there's a different types of dessert. What if you change it? You eat the dessert first, and then you eat and the appetizer in the end. So it is all messed up. So the better way is that we go through the formal process and we enjoy each of it. That is, if you see, doing research is a science and paper writing is an art. How do you write a paper is very important. It's almost as important to do the research, because think in this case, when you're doing the research, you're submitting a paper. You're not going to go with your paper to explain your idea to the reviewer. This means whatever the idea that you have, it should be written in a way that people are able to understand and appreciate it, right? So that's why I consider that writing is an art, while research is a science, okay? So now, since it is art, you want to have your, let's say if you're doing painting, you want to have a good painting, right? That's why I consider, similarly, this paper is very important. So each paper should follow some ideas. For example, it should have a good title. What is the research about, right? So it should have a very good title that conveys the information. Then it should have some information on the abstract. The abstract is summary of your paper, what this paper is about. Then every paper should have some sort of introduction, okay? That what is this paper about? What is the problem it is going to solve? And all this information should be in the introduction section, okay? Then in the introduction section, once you're done in the introduction section, you should have some background. What I mean by background is that not everybody knows about your area. So you should give some information about the people so they understand some basic ideas that help them to understand your research. So there should be some background information in that paper. This means if I'm a reader of your paper or a reviewer of a paper, I can look into the background section and get some information. But again, remember that we are page limited. So we cannot have a background of 20 pages. So it should be concise background that is reason. And then if somebody has to dig more, you can cite some information where people can go more and understand more background that is needed to understand your paper. So you can anytime refer those things, right? Then the next thing that is important is the prior works. Because somebody is judging your paper, they should also understand that what is the existing work in this area, what people have done in the past. So you should have some section called prior works, where you will talk about, hey, in the past, these problems has been addressed in these manners by these researchers. You see that? Okay. And we are citing each one of them. Now, after that, once you do that, then you talk about your own contribution. For example, this is our proposed contribution. What are you proposing? What is your design method? How do you solve that problem? Okay. So you explain them in some of algorithm, method, whatever you want to use, right? So this is an algorithm. This is the steps that we're talking about. This is algorithm. How is your algorithm different from the existing algorithms? After that, once you finish these algorithms, you should have some simulation or some result section. So you can have some sort of you can say, hold on, here. Okay, here. So here you should have some sort of a result section. The result section should talk about how is your work different from the existing literature, how it is improving the existing work. So that is the discussion. If you have some simulation, suppose you're running some tools, you can plot some graphs and figures and all those things to show that your work is improving the existing literature. And finally, you should have a conclusion. A conclusion is that what people, when you spend this amount of research, what is your conclusion? How is your method different from the existing literature? What if the people are going to gain from the research work that you have done? So this is the conclusion section, okay? Then of course, you can put acknowledgement, and the most important thing is the references, right? Usually, if you submit in journals, there is some of them journals have page limits, some of them doesn't have page limits. So you can understand that you can look into the guidelines of that particular journal or conferences. Many of the conferences will say, oh, submit a 6-page. Then you need to condense this information within 6 pages and follow a proper template. There's a template that is provided by each journal and conferences. Follow that template. And this is the, you can say, a brief overview of what are the contents of a research paper.
Thank you, Himanshu ji. I've also heard that some of the researchers, they do get funding as well. Mm-hmm. So how does this funding process works, and how do they receive funding for their research? And is there any proposal that they need to write? If they need to write, then what's the process for that?
Correct. That's another good question. So there are many faculties here. So usually if you see, there are RFPs, there's a request for proposal. And India, the request for proposal come from, let's say, from DST, or UGC or whatever agencies actually, right? It may be different in India. In the US is different. There are own agencies, right? So once the RFP comes, they will identify, they will tell you exactly that what topics they are considering, right? What topics that is, so for example, uh, let's say the RFP is technology-based solution for COVID-19, let's say, okay? And you work in that area, then you understand that, okay, this is the topic that is of interest to me. Then they will tell you what they are looking. So then they will tell you this is the guidelines. Like for example, the proposal should be of 15 pages or 20 pages. It should have some content that, so that the proposal should have some format. For example, the proposal should have, again, similar to the paper, it should have summary, it should have the description of the problem. You should have defined the objectives. What are the objectives of a proposal? Because think in this case, the proposal is different from a paper. Paper is you are solving one small problem. Proposal will solve many problems like that. So proposal gives a big, you can say holistic picture. It gives the broad view of the problems, right? Many papers and many PhD theses can be derived from the proposals, right? So the proposal should it should be slightly broader in nature, not limited to just only one problem, but it should be a set of coherent problems, which if they will solve is going to provide the solution that you're going to talk about. Okay, so that is what the proposal is about. And then you can look into another way to learn about how to write proposal. If you look into many of these funding agencies, actually, especially in the US, National Science Foundation and all those things, they also provide good examples of the proposals that have been funded in the past in their website. So many universities also post some examples proposals. So if you're not familiar, you can visit some of these websites and download some of the example proposals which are freely available and try to learn from it. Then when you're writing a proposal, you are new, then you can take the feedback from the senior faculties who have funded. Okay, if you have some good friends, right? Sometimes, let's say you write a proposal, you can also take the help of the people who are not in your area, right? Let's say you are writing a science proposal, a technology-based proposal, and some of your friends in the arts or sciences. You can just provide him the proposal. He doesn't know anything about your area, but you can just try to see and give him the proposal and see, can you understand what I have written? Because the person who is not an expert, if he can understand what you have done, this means you have done a good job of writing the proposal, right? So these are some of the feedback that I will give. And as I told you, this itself can be a big workshop on how to write proposal and how to get grants.
Okay. Thank you so much, Himanshu ji. And the very important point over here is to actually review your proposals and your research paper with your mentors and with other peers. So that will help you to find out what are you missing and are you able to express what you really want to do. Sometimes what we think doesn't come out well in words. So it's good to get it reviewed. So I have a very last question. Any final advice or any advice to the students, to junior researchers and to faculty members that you would like to give before I go to students and professors' queries?
See, I will see, because see, as I told you, see, I encourage many students. I'm not saying this is but do whatever you like to do actually. For example, if you want to go to industry, that's also fine. And if you want to go for PhD, that is also fine. But since we do research, I think there is good opportunities for people to go for higher research and make good contributions. And if you want to make, like you can say, India as one of the leaders in the area in the research, we need students. We need students who go for higher studies. We need faculties who are very well trained. So these are opportunities. And the good thing is that there are many people of the Indian origin who have become professors outside India, in US, in other countries, and approach them, take the help of them. You can also approach the people who are not of Indian origin also. They are also willing to help. I took the help of the people, many people when I was in India. Many of my collaborators were not of Indian origins, right? They are completely foreigners, right? In that way at the time. So one thing that is good in research, there is no boundaries. If you do good research, anybody is going to willing to help you. One thing that is good with research, that is beyond the boundaries of the countries and all those things. If you do a good research, You contact a professor anywhere in the world, he or she is willing to help you. Okay, that's how the research things work. So that is a great thing about research.
That's really good. That's very nice. So now I quickly jump on to the questions that I've got in my chat window. I'll go through one by one. So first question was from NSTO. So what is the question is, are binary code used in quantum computing?
Okay, that's a good question. So see, the quantum computing is different from that one. The quantum computing operates in qubits. So usually if you have your classical computer, it operates in 0 and 1. But in quantum computer, the state can be somewhere between 0 and 1 with some probability that the state in the 0 with some probability, the state is in 1 in some probability. So it's in a superposition state. Only once you measure it, it will collapse either to a state of 0 or 1. So that's why quantum computing can compute a lot of things efficiently. And it is a completely different paradigm than the classical computing.
Okay. So this also answers a question that what is the difference between PC and quantum computing? We have already taken a question with respect to format of writing a research paper. What's the role of research in data science?
Okay.
This question is by Aisha. Sorry.
Data science is itself a big. See, if you think in this case, let's say, what is the data actually? If you think in this case, let's say if you're driving a car, each one is driving a car and you're taking the data from that car. What you will do with that information? So data science, this means you have to analyze the data to understand. So let's say if somebody drives the car, right? You can easily learn about somebody driving habits from the data that you have collected from the car. What time the person leaves the house, what time person returns to the house, what driving speed he drives, okay? Is he a good driver or bad driver? All this information you can get from the data. So you think in this case, similarly during the COVID time, right? There's a lot of data. For example, a lot of data on the people. Let's say these data can be used with some ethical manner. Again, you have to take some approval and ethical approval. So remember that you have to take all ethical approvals before you analyze the data, okay? Because it can have some people personal information also. So let's say if you have taken all the ethical permission to analyze the data, then everywhere is a data science. Everywhere you take it, you say from the healthcare to the IoT, to the sensor, to the machine learning, everywhere there is data, okay? So data is huge. And then there's a need of a lot of data scientists.
Okay, that's good. I'll move on to the next one. This is, what are the sources you rely on? This is a question from Vineet Aigal.
So I assume that the sources you rely on, he mean to talk about the research papers, right? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
So what is the best ways to rely on is to look into reputed journals and conferences. So if you search in Google, see, Google captures everything, even it will capture the trash also, right? Okay. So now how to identify the good information from the bad information, right? So that's how what you do is that look into the standard places like IEEE, ACM, then among them also look into top tier journals, top tier conferences, top tier magazines, and make a habit of reading those journals, magazine, okay? Those are, because all this information, let's say, I can have my own opinion, I can write something about it. But when a top conference or journal paper goes through, it goes through a peer review process. This means it has gone through some filtering. So this means when you submit a paper, some reviewers reads it, and then they say that, okay, this idea, good idea or bad idea, then they give you some suggestion, you iterate it, finally it goes through, and sometimes it gets rejected also. But the benefit of that is already peer reviewed. This means the information, there's information has already gone through somebody's eyes, and the peer has reviewed it and said that, yeah, it's a good piece of information.
Okay. In which or in what all aspects quantum computer is better than supercomputer?
Correct. So supercomputer are there. Okay, supercomputer can solve some of the problems, but there are some problems, for example, which are exponentially hard problems, right? Okay. So those problems, even the supercomputer takes huge amount of time. It will take them huge amount of years. But there are quantum algorithms. Think in this case, it's not about the computing process capability. There are new algorithms that are designed. These algorithms are completely new algorithms because they are built on the principle of quantum mechanics and all those things. They are completely new algorithms because these algorithms are different from the classical algorithms, and they utilize quantum properties. They can solve some of the problems which cannot be even solved efficiently and quickly by supercomputers. So that's why people are putting a lot of investment in quantum computers.
Okay. I'm taking the last question, which is actually quite good, and it's very relevant to current situations of COVID. So not many places, the colleges and universities are already taking work from home, online, and student teachers are also taking from home classes. So in this special time, so how can a student start its research journey when there's a very less interaction between the professors and the students?
Yes, that's again a very good question actually, and that is a very, very big challenge right now. I agree. So one way to look into this problem is so now if you think in this case, world is moving towards virtual. Many companies are now allowing work from home. Okay. So this means we have to also prepare for those scenarios, right? Even research. Okay. So I interact with a lot of my students through online actually, right? So the better way is that, for example, you can use, I'm sure that many of you are aware of that you can use some sort of a platform like Microsoft Teams and other platforms where you can, it's like you can chat with professors, or you can find some time, or let's say if you have a group of students, you can form a team, and that it's more like, you can say how you form like a WhatsApp type of groups, right? And instead of, so if you don't have access to those facilities, then you can make a simple like a WhatsApp type of groups, right? And where your professor can be, you can say a group moderator, or some of the good students can be a group moderator, and you add the students there, right? And then that can be a good mechanism for you to post your questions, and whenever your professor sees it or times it, he replies it. Maybe some other student also knows the question, they can reply it. So you can form small WhatsApp groups. I'm not saying WhatsApp as a platform, you can use any platform that you like. You can use Signal or whatever platform, but you can use this small platform and you can form small groups. Okay. And then you can interact through them. That I think is going to the future.
Okay. I've got a very quick question recently that said, in present scenario, please mention good opportunities in area of research. So this is something which we have already covered, Ajit ji, in the presentation, and you would be able to see the recordings as well in the Facebook Live in SmartGaon page. So that's something which you can easily collect. So the list is already given by Himanshu ji. I have not received any further questions. So I would like to wrap this up now because I'm already overshooting the time by 20 minutes. But I would like to deeply, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your presence, Mr. Himanshu ji, and thank you for taking out the time for all of us and explaining it in such a beautiful way. And this is something which is lacking right from the beginning, and nobody is there to guide us in a better way. So people like you who have come from the similar background and from the similar area and bringing your experience and expertise in this field and sharing it with all of us is a true it is a true treat for all of us actually. So I once again thank you all the professors and thank you all the faculty members plus the students who have joined and who have contributed to this session. So if you would have not been here, then this whole program would not be so successful. So thank you once again. I hope we will meet again in another webinar. And thank you very much, Himanshu ji, for your precious time.
Okay, thank you, Rohan, and thank you, SmartGaon Foundation and Richa Foundation for organizing this event. And I think I really enjoyed talking to the students. See, one thing that you see as a professor I enjoy is to talk to the people and the students. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can search about me in the email, or you might have find my email. Feel free to reach me or contact me. I will be more than happy to answer your questions there. Okay. Thank you. You take care.
Thank you very much. Yep. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, everyone.